Hey, welcome back to Music Artists, The Vision and Decisions. I'm Tyler Norris.
I'm Eric Ferris.
And today we have a special treat for you. We are with singer extraordinaire, vocal coach, featured on many songs that we have worked on, as well as songs that she has done on her own, which are also amazing, is Amanda Earhart. Thank you for joining us, Amanda.
Absolutely. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun show today. We're going to learn a lot about recording vocals in the studio, vocals in general, just singing in general. And I think that, your wisdom and experience is going to help a lot of people with this.
I'm stoked.
For sure.
Yeah, so, we can just jump right into some questions unless you have anything you want to say off the bat. No?
I don't know. I'm excited for how this is going to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone's, let's say kind of more on the newer side to singing and vocals, and they're getting into it, what's like a general thing that they should focus on? I've heard some people say, your breathing, but as a vocal coach, if you've got someone that's new.
Wow, it's kind of a loaded question.
I know, right?
Yeah, maybe you can kind of help me a little bit more.
If you were let's say, again, just brand new to vocals, what's like the main thing you would focus on to get better?
Develop as a vocalist?
To develop as a vocalist, to just, I guess, hear your vocals better, to understand what's coming out.
Spend time, just on your craft, singing, writing, recording. That's really key. Yeah. Even if it's on a voice memo at home, if you're brand new, that's what I would recommend, starting there. And then, if you're out performing, you can't do that too much.
Right.
And, but I think what's standing out for me right now as I'm answering this is the recording part. I tell a lot of singers to record themselves when they're performing.
So
go back and listen.
Is it the same philosophy as when you're practicing a performance and you perform in front of a mirror, you see yourself? So when you sing, what's your thought on when you're singing and how you're hearing it in your head and how it's actually being projected?
Yeah.
Are two different things.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So when you hear it, you have a different perspective.
Yes.
And you hear it back.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched on that, because it's actually, my whole approach to coaching it's different than a lot of other teachings out there. But the technique that I really build my approach on foundationally has been around for 50, 60 years. And then I guess I've just kind of created my own modalities in many ways. And one way, and one thing that I say a lot is exactly to that. I tell a lot of singers, we as a singer, we want to sound good. We work really hard on trying to sound really great in our head, and we're actually wasting our time and energy because we don't sound that way on the other side. We don't sound that way to an audience. And so it's completely different to sing and practice. And so what I actually tell them a lot of times is it needs to feel good. It needs to feel good versus sound good in your head. Now, obviously, you got to hit the pitch, right? So that's the basic, most boring definition of a singer. We got to hit that pitch. But if you have a gift and you're a singer, and you can hit those pitches, right, and you're locked in there, then if it sounds good or if it feels good, it'll sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a loaded question. Do you think anybody can learn how to sing?
I have so many people that ask me that question. What about those people that are tone deaf? I actually do believe that everyone can learn how to sing and actually match pitch. I've actually worked with some in the beginning of my years of teaching that could not match pitch, and eventually they did. So is it a lot? Can it take a lot of time? It can. There was a lot of effort involved. But, if you're willing to practice every day, you can learn anything. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
The relationship of, one of the things I've always told people, and see what your thoughts on this. Most people think of their singing as their mouth and their vocal cords and all that. But I think your ears are one of the more important aspects in it, because you have to be able to hear to make adjustments. And you're making adjustments all the time. Your brain's making, tons of adjustments. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I can speak into that for sure. Like, it makes me think of just another thing I talk about with everybody is, as I just mentioned, the most boring definition of a singer is to hit that pitch, right? And so you can't see my arm right now, but I just have it kind of straightened out. And like, I tell people, what's that ultimate goal? We got to match that pitch. So what do we do? How do we hit that pitch? So I'll ask you guys, how do you hit the pitch? How do you ensure that you hit the pitch that you hear?
Practicing and...
Yeah, it was like a basic answer.
Yeah. I don't know. Hearing?
Yeah,
Okay.
listen. Yeah.
There you go.
It's like, and then I always ask people, I kind of joke around, but I'm like, how many ears do you have? Just making sure you're paying attention. And I use what's called split listening. So one ear listens to the voice, the other listens to the music to make sure they match at all times.
Yeah.
So what I always say is never stop listening to the what? Music. Never stop listening to music. I still today, after all these years of singing, that music is my best friend. It's my partner, or who's playing for me, right? It's like I never stop listening because I want to lock in not only my rhythm, but my pitch.
Right.
And so I never stop listening. So whether it's technical or emotional, I never stop listening. Because what happens is a lot of times we apply a technique, or we get excited or nervous and we get off track. And so then we're sharp or flat, right? So I say put that all in one line.
Keep it
And
consolidated.
use the technique, use the emotion, use the, maybe it's your speaking voice in this case with this technique. Use whatever it is, emotionally, technically, to hit that pitch. And how do you hit the pitch? You never stop listening.
Fair enough. That's a pretty good tip.
Yeah, very good.
We're in a lesson here.
Yeah, I know, right? Too bad I'm not a singer.
Hey, maybe you will be after
No,
this.
I don't think so. That's what I was wondering. It's like some people can learn how to sing, not me. We got some good advice on just singing in general, and moving to the studio setting. What do you think a singer should prepare going into the studio? Like, what are things that they should just have down? We've always said, memorize your lyrics, because we feel like your emotion can be portrayed more when you just know the lyrics and you can like focus on the melodies now. But do you have any other things that maybe someone doesn't know that they should prepare going into the studio as a singer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I think the first thing that's coming to mind is, if you are going into a situation where you do have the ability to learn it beforehand versus, a creative session or maybe something you got to learn on the spot, yeah, it's great to know the song, right? Because the more you know it, the better you're going to be able to perform and lay down a cut that you like and that you feel good about. I tell my singers anyway that I work with, let's work on something really well.
Right.
Well, why do we do that? Because they don't have to think about the lyrics and they don't have to think about the melody. So otherwise there's just distractions. You know what I mean?
I think as you grow into your craft and your experience, you get to the point where you can make those changes on the fly. Because when you get in the studio, typically, if you're locked into your one little melody and the producer wants you to do something different, you have to be flexible as well. But you got to start somewhere. So you get a bunch of hours under your belt, you know.
Exactly.
And then, later in your career, I think, being able to make those adjustments on the fly will just come naturally.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super fun to be able to do that.
As a singer, you got to be open-minded to making changes.
Yeah.
Most of them are creative changes, and they're usually for a good reason.
Yeah. I think really the only thing that came to mind other than that is what we started with, which is you're practicing, you're working on your craft, your skill set every single day, you're performing. And so I just think of, the artists I've worked with in the studio, it's like, it is a whole nother game, or life, right, in the studio. It's a whole nother world, I should say. It's a whole nother realm. But it flows together. So your experience live, I know for me, my experience live helped me tremendously when I walked into a studio because I knew my zone. Where's my zone? Where's my flow? And so then I go in the studio and I go to that same flow, that same place. But what I love about it is I get to stack vocals and I get to hit it over and over until I really lock it in. Versus that, when you're on stage, it's like one time, one option.
Yeah.
You got one chance, or is what I should say. And but I think what made me a better singer in the studio is my live experience, because I had to get really good at doing it really great one time. And so then when I go in the studio, I don't have to take 100 takes, because I want to get it done and move forward. And
even though we do have the ability to do multiple takes and there is flexibility in the studio, really, most of the sessions I've worked with, it's good when you keep your playlists minimal, because it really, I think, helps the song, the consistency of the song. I mean, we do what we have to do to get a good product at the end of the day, but I feel like a lot of times when people are really zoning in and they're getting it, then that's what I'm looking for, you know, not punching in like one word.
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with imperfection in lines. I listen to stems of songs from the 80s, and they're filled with those little mistakes. But it's those mistakes that make the character of the song, and we wouldn't want them to be auto-tuned. So
absolutely.
Depends on the song.
Yeah.
Some songs.
So moral of the story is go perform. Do some live performance.
Wherever you can, really.
I mean,
And
even
it
if
is
it's karaoke.
it is tough for younger artists to find places and venues to perform. But they do exist. I mean.
Yeah, and now, I mean, do it at home. Like, do your show on live.
Yeah. There's
on
a
social
bunch
media.
There's a bunch of platforms that have live performing options.
Yeah.
It also helps with nerves. I think if you can get over stage nerves, it's easier to deal with the nerves in the studio, which nerves are a huge issue in the studio.
Yeah.
Especially with like new artists.
Yes, they are.
I mean, you get that warmth feeling and your hands are tingling and you're super nervous. And so your singing is going to be a little off. But then I've noticed, like, if I make them run like 3 or 4 passes and then be like, okay, now rest. And then all of a sudden they're like in it. Because it's like they've done it, you know, but they have to run those 3 or 4 passes first in order to like get those nerves down.
You know, I say you want to have that live experience. I mean, if you're an artist, I don't know what we're talking about here, but it's like a recording and performing artist. I feel like that's pretty much where, okay. So, you know, you want to have the experience in both realms, because, you know, it's a whole nother ball game behind the mic in the studio, and you can get, like you said, in your head.
Right.
And but so you want to really just, you're developing. As a recording artist, you're developing. And as a performing artist, you're developing. And so it's like, it's great to just keep doing it as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try to make sure at the very beginning that the comfort level is there from the very beginning.
Yes.
And what they're hearing. Because when you're singing with headphones on and there's music playing, you know, it's not like listening for enjoyment. It's a different kind of listening. So
yeah.
We take plenty of time getting set up and like, are you comfortable? Because once you can get past that, and then you can focus on just the singing and the emotion of the song, then, you know, good things happen.
That's key. I mean, you know, we've worked together
Yeah.
plenty of times. You know that I want to get it right in my ears so that I can do a great job. So we might just need to take a little extra time to dial that in, so that I am comfortable.
What we've done a lot of times is you naturally will probably start on the first verse. So we'll focus on the first verse, record the first verse, move on down the line. But by the time we get to the end of the song, we're like, you know what? Let's take the first verse again. Because by the time you get to the first chorus, you've already got some singing under your belt.
Timbre's
already,
dialed in.
So we'll go back and we'll re-record the first verse. And it normally doesn't take but a couple of passes, if that.
Another one is what's something you should know as a singer going into the studio. So what is something that you'd recommend? Like, hey, just expect this if you're going into the studio. Like, I don't know any examples because I'm not a singer, but like, I don't know, maybe dealing with producer or dealing with an engineer, or like how to work the mic, or like stuff like that. I mean, like, what are some tips that you think they should know? Yeah,
I mean, that's perfect, because I was actually thinking about this on the last question as he was talking about, you know, working with someone. And the key was, you want to take the time to get it right, but I think it's also key who you're working with. You know, we'll just back up to that right there. You know, we want to be working with somebody that is going to take the time to lock it in and does understand that, and, you know, wants to honor that. And Yeah, and so that's important, is who's your engineer? Who's your producer? Like, who's on the other side of that mic or that window? You want to make sure you're with somebody that wants to partner with you and believe they believe in you, and they can walk that out with you. And you know, you might find some that you go, oh, I think that might be the first and last time I work with them, but maybe they're not a good fit. So I think that's really key. As far as preparing, though, you know, besides preparing, working with different personalities, if we're talking about like the mic or anything, I think it's the same thing with performance live. You know, there's mic technique live, and that's a whole nother conversation, which is super fun and exciting and so key. I think more key than most people think. That mic is my best friend. And my sound guy loves me when I know how to work my mic.
True.
Yeah, because and I say I'm my own sound person. I'm my own sound guy because I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so it just moves with me. Otherwise, the sound guy's too late by the time he adjusts. But in the studio, it is a lot different. You've got your headphones on. You've got a completely different mic. I don't really know as much if it's preparation as much as it's the practice and the experience of doing it.
Right.
Knowing what it feels and sounds like on the mic, dialed in, a really good vocal chain, and then you're off and running, and then you can focus on what you're there to do.
Yeah. I think also get used to recording with headphones, like even if you're at your house, just so that you know what your voice sounds like through headphones.
Oh, absolutely.
Like live performance, you know, sometimes you'll be using in-ears or monitors, so that helps with that. You know, some singers come in that have never like recorded with headphones, and they're like, I just sound weird, and it's like what we were saying earlier. Because they're not used to it. You know?
Yeah, it's just different. Yeah. Honestly, I prefer if I've got a really good mic chain and a good mic. Hey, are you kidding me? I prefer to have that. I'd prefer to sing on that versus nothing. Yeah. So once you're used to it, you're like, oh man, I don't ever want to go back.
I prefer to sing either in the car or in the shower. I sound the best in one of those
Natural
two.
reverb.
Yeah, it just sounds great. I mean,
shower, yeah.
Throw up a mic, it's going to sound amazing.
Actually, I don't know. If there are any people, you know, if there are any artists out there that are, you know, really just getting started in the car, I'll tell you this, just since you brought it up.
Yeah.
Honestly, it kind of traps your sound. You know, so it's very easy to oversing in the car, FYI.
Yeah.
So it's a whole nother deal. So you got to get used to the different environments, right? And then what works for you, start there. What's easiest for you, start there.
It's like what we've been saying since day one. You got to develop your ear for things, and then once you like start to develop that ear, then you'll see a lot of progression in terms of your craft, because then you realize what you're looking out for instead of just going into it blindly. At least that's what I think. Yeah. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of the last thing, do you have any, let's say, so here's the other thing is either warm-up tips, like what they should do, like when they're warming up. So I know another thing is to drink, I don't know if you can confirm this, but to drink room temperature water if you're in the studio, because cold water isn't good. A lot of people like tea. I mean, what do you recommend? You know, like it's a whole thing. But I mean, it's important because it's like the amount of singers that come in that need something like that to like, you know, maybe this is how they should warm up, or you know what they should do. I you know,
this is probably a whole episode.
It could be, but like maybe some small tips.
Yeah. I feel like this whole conversation, we could definitely turn it into like several series, right? Yeah. You know, I laugh because it's also another question I get a lot. It's like, and it's kind of a running joke. It's super hilarious, and I always mention it in, you know, vocal workshops or even private sessions. I'm just like, when I'm talking about vocal health, you know, because it is key. You know, my threefold approach is vocal health, vocal technique, and mindset. And you cannot have one without the other two. And so vocal health comes from overall health. So my approach is, you know, holistic. But so I always joke because I'm like, I see those singers that it's like, I'm about to go on stage, I got to get my water, you know? And it's like, no. And here's the tip. Actually, you guys might not know this. If you drink water right before you sing, it's actually sloughing off the actual natural moisture that's on your voice. So it's actually going to dry you out more. And most singers don't know that.
That's interesting.
So they go, what? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. So I drink water, but it's like maybe in the middle of a set when I'm like, man, I need to be hydrated. And at that point, I'm good to go. But you really need to be hydrated 24 hours in advance,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a muscle. So really, that's what you want to look at with that. But really, everybody's got their own little thing, their own little regiment. You talk about the tea and this, that, and the other.
Salt water, I've seen that.
Yeah, because it's alkalining, and I have a whole teaching on that.
Yeah.
And what I recommend, it really comes from experience, and really being in a place where I wasn't in the most healthy place, and it was affecting my voice. And so, we could talk about caffeine, we could talk about alcohol, we could talk about lemon water, all day and night, but
Don't do a shot of whiskey before you perform.
I personally am not going to recommend that, but there's a lot of them that do it, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, so like short term, maybe it'll like make you looser. I don't know. That's what the theory is, right? But long term, you're damaging.
exactly, Tyler.
So,
Exactly. Kind of like taking, I'm sorry, pharmaceuticals, but kind of like taking ibuprofen. Like, do not take an anti-inflammatory, because you will feel, it's kind of like taking a pain pill.
yeah.
And, and there, years ago, I actually did, because I was younger, I didn't know any better. And, I was in really bad shape. I couldn't even stand up. So, and I had a gig, right? So I had nothing to do with my voice, but, and I'm like, whoa, I can see how people can get addicted to this. And I sang, and I was like, well, this is amazing. But it's bad. It's bad long term for, like, exactly what you were saying. So it sets you up for a really risky situation.
I always think of it as, my favorite guitar, which isn't very cheap. It's an expensive guitar, and I take care of it, and I don't let anything happen to it. And our voices are part of our body,
Yeah.
and
totally.
that's your instrument. And
Yes.
you wouldn't treat your body that way.
Your guitar.
Well, you wouldn't treat your guitar that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
you gotta
so
treat
good.
your body the same way.
It is. It is your instrument.
Yeah.
For me, that was it. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not going to work. This is why I'm here on this earth, to sing. And if I'm having any kind of hindrance, I got to figure this out. And that's when everything changed, with my lifestyle. I had to, because I'm like, this is what I'm born to do.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, you're looking at, it's an investment in yourself, right? To take care of yourself and to make sure you're healthy so that you can sing.
Yeah, because you can. A lot of singers, you've heard stories, in social media and on the news. It's like, this person had surgery, vocal surgery, or most of the time, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but believe it or not, it's because they're singing on unhealthy chords.
Interesting. That's how they develop nodules and...
Yeah. Yep. So you're risking damage when you're singing on unhealthy chords. And how do you get unhealthy chords? Well, you've maybe damaged them, or your body's in a really unhealthy place and it's affecting your voice.
Yeah.
And so it's not as much about the singing and the damage. You can do damage there, and you can have bad technique for sure. But all the singers I've worked with, it's because there's an underlying issue.
Yeah. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good note to end on, because taking care of yourself is the best way to get better.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
well, thank you so much, Amanda.
Yes.
So where can people find you if they were going to go look for you online and check out your, vocal coaching and your singing?
Yeah, so my artistry page is amandaearhart.com. Of course, you can find me there for really whatever reason if you want to reach out. The studio, vocal studio, is aevstudios.com. So Amanda Earhart Vocal Studios, right? So aevsstudios.com, just one S.
Okay.
Right, so.
Perfect.
And,
Well,
there's content on there
Yeah.
for people if they were interested in taking their vocal to the next level.
Yeah,
They
you're
could
exactly
check
right. Actually, as a matter of fact, the online course that we put out, I put my 16 years of teaching in that course. All the foundational tips that you need, all the training that you need. Honestly, it can be kind of overwhelming, but there's so much depth to it. But it's a 12-week course, and it's lifetime access. So I have people that are beginners, and I have people that are that have taken from me for 10 years that are in there, and they're constantly learning, right? Revelation upon revelation. And yeah, it's online, and it's the most feasible way to start and kickstart and launch your vocal career as it relates to training. You got everything you need, the perfect toolkit, and it works great with private coaching, and has all your downloadable warm-ups and everything you need. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll put some links in the description as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I should tell you what it's called.
Yeah, definitely.
It's called Vocal RX. Get it?
Vocal RX.
Prescription equals 5, and it's spelled FYVE, and it stands for Find Your Voice Effortlessly.
Nice.
Because it's supposed to be effortless to sing.
Very well. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fun. We are Maggio, MA6IO. You can find us at ma6io.com. We make up music, artists, division, and decisions. I'm Tyler Norris.
I'm Eric Ferris.
And thank you guys so much for joining us this podcast. And I guess we will not see you next time. Hopefully you'll hear us.
You won't see us, you'll hear us.